Now we're in. Welcome. This time I'm good. I think we're exactly at Swiss time because it's exactly at 3. And thank you all for coming here. And welcome to our panel discussion on upskilling digital entrepreneurship in developing countries. My name is Audrey Goosen. I'm the Netherlands WTO ambassador, and it's my pleasure and honor to moderate this session today. And we could think that today's panel is going to take us on a trip into the future, but we shouldn't be fooled. This is actually a trip which is already now changing the lives of many people around the globe. And who's taking us on this trip? Let me quickly introduce our panel. On my right, Robert Skidmore. Robert is the chief of a section of the ITC, very well known to many of us. Then on my right, Pearl, she's the CEO and founder of Collaborate in Uganda. Welcome. On my left is Betty, CEO and founder of Qua company SAS in Senegal, and she will be telling us all about this. And further on the right, we have Rachel. She also speaks Dutch, I just found out. And she's the CEO and founder of the R&D group in Ethiopia. So I'm looking very much forward for you all to tell us a bit more about your own experiences in this field and all your insights a few minutes later. So we are living in a time of rapid technological change, and we have advancements in AI, automation, and digital tools, and these are reshaping our industries and economies. And they are doing this on an unprecedented pace. And as a result, the World Economic Forum has calculated that about 85 million jobs will be lost, and 40% of core skills will change. And as AI reshapes our jobs, the way we work, reskilling and upskilling become not just options, but necessities, especially for young people. It also provides real opportunities for young people and also young people in developing countries. So as the internet is blurring our physical borders, and we already see it today because we're being live streamed, new and AI-proof skills can be marketed globally, and particularly through the freelancing market. And I hope that the panel can give us a little bit more insight in just that. So today, we will first hear from each of our panelists about their experience, their insight and views. Then we'll have a little discussion among the panelists. I'm curious to see if we're all on the same page or just have a little different view on this. And then afterwards, there's an option for questions and answers with the audience. So I would like to say, let's just start. And I think I'm still right on time. First of all, may I ask Betty, you are the CEO and founder of Qua company SAS in Senegal. You're also an E-Trade for Women advocate at Danktet. And can you introduce yourself, share a little bit of your story, and tell us why digital innovation matters when you were starting your entrepreneurial journey? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Audrey. So I founded my company, Qua company, in 2018 when I returned to Senegal after having lived practically my entire life here in Geneva. So I developed a platform named ouadakar.net. And this is a marketplace, and this marketplace targets the vendor from the market in Dakar in Senegal. And I formed a team of students who help the merchant to list their products online on the platform. And when the COVID-19 occurred, the pandemic, the need to sell online was more intense. So the Ministry of Commerce decided to set up the national e-commerce platform. So with the experience I had with my own platform, I was able to support this project. And this is how I became a national consultant in digital inclusion. And I have also participated in several digitalization projects, like the project of telemedicine called WS30 for the rural area in Senegal. And also, I participate in the e-voicing project from the company Axon. And I also contributed to the National E-commerce Development Strategy of Senegal. And now I work on a project with the Ministry of the Commerce of Togo to support women who have activity in e-commerce. And I am also a member and committee leader for the initiative E-Trade for Women. And I am a committee leader for the Francophone Africa region. And why the digital innovation is important in my entrepreneurial journey? Because this is a passion for me, but also because with the digital world, there is a possibility to launch a business even if you don't have a lot of resources. So this is particular, and this is why it was so important for me when I started. This is what I can say.
Thank you very much. And also very interesting to hear that you already had your platform and then COVID came and you were well prepared to take advantage of the opportunity. Well, it's very interesting to hear also that not a lot of resources, and that's actually now there's a way to go ahead with that. Well, then maybe I can direct the next question to Wehel. You are CEO and founder of the R&D group in Ethiopia. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? And understood you offer digital capacity building through innovative business acceleration programs to help startup and SMEs. That's a long sentence. Can you tell us a little bit how you enabled this, and particularly in Ethiopia? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My story, I'll try to keep it short, but it's very related to where I come from. So I'm originally from Ethiopia. I came to the Netherlands when I was 15 as a refugee. And I went back to Ethiopia after 12 years. And in my mind, Ethiopia was growing together with the world. And the reality was there was a lot of differences between poor and rich. And I just felt people that actually could have gone to school with me were not being able to go to school because of the chance that they are born in a wrong country. And that intrigued me because with equal opportunity, you could create actually a space where everybody is included. And this is 2005. So I was young and I was considered very social activist, which I appreciated, but I wanted to do something around it. So during my master's degree in England, I came across the concept of social enterprise. So then I say, okay, there is a mix of socially driven organization that can actually provide solution with commercially viable services, but at the same time, starting business with social cause. With that, we started RBD, it's called Dutch company. And 2 years later, we started R&D because we realized, having advising companies is good, but you end up being shelved in companies. It's not implemented effectively. So together with a Dutch company called Ortec, it's a software company, one of the leading software companies, we started an outsourcing center in Ethiopia to provide digital jobs for Ethiopians in 2009. So we are kind of pioneer in the industry, which is not always the nice thing to hear because you do have to deal with governmental issues that the people do not understand. And most importantly, the fact that African talents are not appreciated equally. So due to that, we say, okay, instead of only focusing on the Dutch businesses that are, willingly to work with us, but still too small for us to scale, we started a business acceleration program for local businesses to also absorb the number of jobs that are required for the country to thrive. So that's where we started in 2012. We started an acceleration center for small and medium enterprises. We work with global organizations like UNDP, World Bank, and Coordinate, and so forth, to actually help them to develop their skills on becoming more digitally, accessible for companies. At the same time, get access to information, access to finance, and access to funding, and more importantly, access to the capacity. And I think I've said enough for now. So that's what I do in free time. I am a mother of 5 children, and I travel around from Ethiopia to the Netherlands. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We were already very impressed by the first part of your story, but when you said the 5 kids, we were like, and also very interesting that you were saying as a pioneer. I saw that Robert already was nodding on that. You're the first one starting out. Do you want to react, Rob?
Well, only we talk a lot about first mover advantage, but sometimes it's not really an advantage. You're pioneering, you're absorbing a lot of the scrutiny, and you're making the life easier for your competitors who are waiting. So but you're still there. Okay.
Thank you very much. And then may I also go then to the very right of the table, Pearl. You are the CEO and founder of Collaborate, a freelance platform in Uganda. And also for you, could you introduce yourself and can you explain how important it is for youth to have access to digital skills and to enter the global gig economy?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Pearl Gakazi. My story would make sense mostly if I begin with statistics. In Uganda today, about 700 to 800,000, if my math is right, we have those people that I've mentioned enter the job market annually. And the traditional job market can only absorb about 90,000 of those, or maybe 100 if you're lucky, the traditional job market. And why that statistic makes sense, in 2015, I was part of that statistic. And I was in the 610,000 that couldn't be absorbed by the 90,000 traditional jobs. And today I stand in front of you because I appreciate the desire for young people to make change, but sometimes there isn't enough exposure or opportunity for them to do that. And my mission has been, how do we create an environment where young people from around Africa especially can tap into global opportunities around the world through technology? So my history, I started by starting a digital marketing agency that could absorb as many young people as possible so that they can sell their skills. If you know a thing about Uganda, we're very happy people. We are good at telling stories. And by the virtue of that, then we can create good content, right? And very many young people were interested in that. But I realized it was limiting. It was still pivoted to Uganda. So Collaborate Platforms is a story or a product of appreciating what we can do if we think outside the box. Now, what Collaborate Platforms is doing is, and Collaborate is spelled with a K-O-L-A and Boret, right? So K-O-L-A, today you're going to learn some Luganda, is local language back home. Kola means work. So collaborate, Kola, work, and collaboration. We decided to create this platform where all different people from different walks of life can actually access these global opportunities. But to the question, why is it important? We all talk about agency, we talk about autonomy, we talk about financial freedom. Those are not realities for some people around the world. And creating a platform where people can get upskilled and get them exposed to the fact that being on social media, you don't have to necessarily be a consumer, but you could be a creator. And being a creator, you're communicating your story and there's someone else learning your experience, but you're making money out of it. So I do think there's so many areas that we could go into discussion of why upskilling and why it's important for these platforms to exist. But I would hinge on one area. We need financial freedom for a lot more people in the world. Through financial freedom, and the importance that I talk about when we speak of agency, through financial freedom, we have more young people to innovate, more people to create and solve for global problems. And this could start in a freelancing aspect. We have to remember that freelancers, at the core of them, they are entrepreneurs. They might not have large systems, they might not, but they are skilled enough to speak to someone anywhere in the part of the world and tell them, I can deliver this better than maybe this big marketing agency that you've worked with in the past. And for a person who can do that, why don't we bet on them? Why don't we create an environment for them that they can access these opportunities and grow as they participate in the global opportunities, they are growing businesses around the world, but essentially they are investing back home. And we are creating money, resources, changing mindsets back home by creating these spaces. So that will be my response to that.
Thank you very much. And also very interesting to hear how you started out at situation and time where there were not that many opportunities and you created your own. I would say it's also interesting to have a little bit the idea of freelancing and how, but we'll explore that a little bit further down in the discussion, but how freelancers can actually cherish the opportunities to continue. But before that, on my right side, the only man on the panel, what? You're the chief of section at ITC. Can you tell us what you do or what role ITC plays in enabling the upscaling of digital entrepreneurs in developing countries? And maybe come also back on some of the things that have been said already by the panel.
Sure, thank you. It's pretty intimidating to be up here with all these CEOs. So if you see me waver a little bit, give me a little bit of room here. First of all, thanks a lot for having us on the panel and for being the convener of what's going to be a really interesting conversation. So ITC, I've been there maybe 20 years. And when we started, there were guys who did digital, and then there were guys who did trade. And then the digital guys were a little bit weird and whatever. We had something called E-Trade Bridge. You'll remember maybe, Mata. So slowly we've come to the conclusion that the two cannot be separated, and connectivity really matters in trade. So if our job is, our mandate is to support the internationalization of businesses in developing countries, this cannot be divorced from making them competent in digital and making them able to trade digitally. So that realization has led our management to think of one of the 4 big priorities at ITC to be digital, so-called digital moonshot. And in this moonshot, the idea was that we don't have sort of digital folks and non-digital folks, but we have a combined corporate approach to bringing companies to market digitally, helping and to being enabling digital trade at a more systemic level. So basically our job, and my job is in part to lead that, is to try to raise our level of ambition for helping companies trade digitally. And these are great examples of companies who are using digital as a business model, not just trading digitally. Part of this moonshot is to connect 20,000 small companies. And connect we use broadly to mean those who are already trading to trade digitally, to enhance their ability to do so, and some who are not connected to get them connected. We're also part of that thinking about the helping 4,000 digital entrepreneurs to do this as a kind of leading edge. It's not the only work we do, but it's one of the key parts of it is digital entrepreneurship. So part of my job is to think of ways we as a Geneva-based organization focused on trade can support digital entrepreneurs. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But one of the reasons that we're so glad to be up here with you, Audrey, is that we're collaborating on a Netherlands Trust Fund project in 7 countries, where we get to work with cool people like Pearl and Rahel and Betty in helping them to scale the work they're doing. They're the ones leading the way. We're helping them scale. And you say, well, what skills? We'll talk about that, but it really depends, and it's really evolving fast. And I want to share a little bit later in the conversation what we were talking about on this in Uganda a couple of weeks ago. But we've already gotten to the target of 3,000, which has been very instructive in the process. And it's enabled us to have also an offering we can get to many more. We can scale through our SME Trade Academy, but also in many other ways. So I think that's fundamentally what we're doing. And I think just to say, how would I react to what these guys have said? I think that the way we were able to get to scale, and we're able to work with thousands of entrepreneurs, and then tens of thousands, and then maybe we'll get to the 700,000, is really taking their lead in determining what their needs are and helping to amplify those, and taking what we can do in terms of the markets they're trying to penetrate, helping them understand those markets, and helping entrepreneurs shape that journey. So it's up to them a little bit to take the journey, but we're there in a way to make it easy. and we can come back on different points.
Thank you, Rob. And it's good to hear that it's also about upscaling and how many thousands of entrepreneurs we're talking about. And also interesting that you said that to determine what the needs are, I imagine they're different for different situations as well as different markets. Maybe it's also an idea to start the discussion a little bit amongst ourselves. Maybe I can start with a question for Betty, which I'll later ask you, Rob. But feel free to come in if you feel you want to enter the conversation. Betty, what are the needs to encourage digital entrepreneurship? And for a new generation that is fit for this increasingly digital world?
Okay. I think if we talk about developing countries, and particularly in West Africa, we have to distinguish the situation between young people who are in the rural area from the people who are in the urban area, because the problems are different. In the rural area, the most important barrier is the access to internet. I mean the quality of the internet connection. Because with the project I was involved in, I had the opportunity to go all over my country in Senegal. So I see the differences between the situation. So in the rural area, the need is to have a good internet connection. So I think it's important to invest in this infrastructure so the connection could be more stable. So the young entrepreneur in the rural area have the opportunity to launch a digital business. So this is very important. And I think it's different in the urban area. The problem is different because in the big cities, the internet connection is stable. The bandwidth is good, so they don't. Young people there don't have this problem. I think in the urban area, the problem is about the mindset. I think we have to launch awareness campaign, to change maybe the mindset of the entrepreneur, digital entrepreneur, because when I talk to them, I see that they have the ideas that if they want to launch a digital business, the first step is to get funding. But with the digital, we have the opportunity to launch maybe platform as a prototype without any fund. So I want the young people to know that, and them to be aware that they don't need funding at this step. It should not be a barrier. So this is about a mindset. And then another point for rural and urban area about the young entrepreneur, they also have to be aware that they have to train a lot, and the training is a continuous process. They cannot train into a thing that it's okay now, they know. They have to train always, and it's easy to access. The information can be accessed easily by internet. So they really need to be aware of this. So this is
Thank you very much. It's interesting what you're saying about the difference between a big city and a rural area in terms of infrastructure stability, I heard you say, and also the mindset and the training. Rob, can I ask you the similar question? What are the needs to encourage digital entrepreneurship? This perspective.
Yeah, very much so. So I think Betty's already pulled out some of the things. So we talk a lot about, let's say 3 big areas, which is affordability, access, and then, skilling and capacity. And I think Betty's already, mentioned those. I think for us, we try to think a lot about those and which ones, of course, we can influence, and then how we bring together different actors to influence the higher order issues like infrastructure. But in terms of the needs, I think that the question can vary depending on who you're talking to, not just rural and urban, but also, for instance, if we have groups of freelancers who are in refugee situations, I think Pearl, you mentioned. So this is something, it's relatively unique in terms of the work environment they're in, even the mindset, whether they're allowed to work and so on. So that it ranges from that to groups of creatives, for instance. So they're doing their creative work online. So they may need more training in business. They need more training in certain other things. When it comes to a more classic kind of freelancer, we see, different skills like API integration or WordPress or content creation. So there's kind of a whole list of them. And the idea that I think really comes out in our work is that we need to be really with the market in determining what those skills will be. And it sounds obvious, and we all say we do it, but I think we really need to be disciplined in that area. And they change really rapidly. So the conversation I was having 2 weeks ago in Uganda was with a group of tech companies who are, in a way, consumers of the people that are digital entrepreneurs, in a second order. And they were talking a lot about things like soft skills. They were talking a lot about customer management, about determining the needs of clients, talking a lot about, ability to communicate. So these are fundamentals of business that don't necessarily have to do with specific skills. So we try to be, out front in developing those kinds of skills, but also we try to work also at a systemic level. So that means, we're quite accustomed to taking groups of companies international, which is relatively straightforward process, if not always easy. But trying to change the whole ecosystem around a group is something where we have raised our level of ambition, and where, of course, when we were first introduced to this concept, we said, no, we can't be responsible for such a thing. But we've been pushed in a good way to say, look, you need to have this higher order effect. So one of the things we work on, for instance, is startup acts across West Africa, but also now East Africa, to try to create let's say the policy environment for these companies to come up. So not necessarily individuals, but as they grow into startups, we see clusters of individuals who become startups. Can they be recognized for government support? Can they get the right definition, and can they get the right links? So this is just one of the ways we're trying to do it. For instance, in Zambia, we also have a coordinated approach where we're working with the ZICTA, the regulator. We're working with companies. We're working with other partners like banks to pull all in the same direction, to improve the access, the affordability to digital.
Thank you, Rob. So it's interesting what you're saying, that it's also about the fundamentals of business. Shouldn't forget those. But also what you're saying, that actually at systemic level, you're building an ecosystem around the group. You didn't want to start with that at first, but you decided to do so. Yeah. Could you give us a little bit more insight in that?
Yeah, sure. I think what it requires of all of us is that we have to take collective responsibility for something. So it's not just let's say ITC working with one partner, working with one group, but it's actually got to be ITC working with colleagues at UNCTAD who may be doing e-trade readiness. It may be us working with multiple government agencies. So there may be an ICT regulator, but there may also be small business development agency. It may be working with municipalities, or working with Livingston, town of Livingston in Zambia. So it means having a much wider group of partners, and to be more patient in terms of animating that, understanding there's going to be a payoff at the end. And in fact, it was under NTF where this, we were pushed to think of this idea of what's systemic and what isn't. And I think that's when it becomes systemic. So why would we resist? Because it's difficult. It's difficult. It requires longer project horizons. It requires more patience, and it probably requires other skills than just technical. And so that's when all of the partnerships development that we've been doing starts to pay off, and we have to be in that way patient and very open-minded to who could be the right partners and how.
Thank you so much. When we're talking about the role of artificial intelligence and the need to have more digital skills, people in developing countries. Perhaps, Rachel, I can ask you this question first and then Betty. Could you shed some light on your views on AI?
Yes. So to start with, I think everybody's talking about AI. When we started in 2009, the company we worked with is very well known for data bank. We used to call it different then. We used to have people that actually were entering data into digital platforms that are now called AI platforms to train them to anticipate activities based on the trained, interventions. So now, years later, our employees actually had to develop their skills to a different level of AI knowledge. What means is that our employees have to develop the skills of communication. So a lot of focus have to be put on soft skills, which mostly is forgotten in the conversation of AI. At the end of the day, you would need people, to serve people on a human-centric level, which digital economy is actually kind of missing out now. So we worked a lot on developing their skills in that space. But to bring it back to the reality of AI now, of course, the skills are very important to have. And I think what they would do is they would provide economic opportunity for people in developing countries that otherwise have been left behind in the previous economic revolution. And that only happens if they actually continuously upskill their level of knowledge to compete on global space. Because the competition is not coming from, our employees are not competing with Ethiopians or not with Ugandans, with Philippines, India, and all other countries that have experience serving global industries. So we have a collective responsibility, like Rob said, to make sure that people actually are continuously developing these skills. But that can only happen if we have solved accessibility, affordability, and I think connectivity was also mentioned, so that people actually can participate on a global space. Secondly, it actually empowers communities. The way the AI is, organized, especially in the time of COVID, we have seen that people were actually able to access healthcare through digital solutions, which was otherwise almost impossible. And if we look back to the financial inclusion in Africa, M-Pesa is one of the first companies in the world that started digital money, which was helping rural people to actually trade. So it provides also opportunity for people to be included in their economic development. And of course, like I said, there will be actually more globally competing citizens, as opposed to traditional jobs that we are working in. So someone who actually is based in Ethiopia can easily access job opportunity elsewhere through existing platforms such as Upwork, but also a platform like Collaborate and our platform Share. This is where you actually see now the digital discrimination is getting smaller and smaller, but I think it's still there. So it's a very important conversation where we can have. And I think finally it helps for the global South to think about the SDG goals that we have set to make sure that, everybody is not forgotten and we make sure that people are actually included. So for that to happen, we need to work on people to develop skills like AI, machine learning, and software engineering, rather than, the routine jobs we used to be doing in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. It's interesting what you point out. It's a global competition. The upscaling, I think Betty said it before, it's a continuous upscaling. And nobody should be forgotten. This is also an important thing. Betty, could you shed some light from your perspective on the importance and the role of AI?
Yeah, I think that artificial intelligence, it's a huge potential for to get digital skills. So it can play a role to reduce the digital education gap. And I think that to exploit that, the young entrepreneur, they should really understand that the AI, it's easy to access, because there are some stereotypes around the AI, and some young entrepreneurs, they think that it's very difficult to access to AI. It's very complex. They think that maybe it is for an elite and it's not for everybody. So I think they must be really aware that if you have a device and a connection, you can access to AI. And it's user-friendly. Platform like ChatGPT or Google Bard or other AI, it's user-friendly, so it's important them to know. And this is also interesting because with AI, you can the entrepreneurs, they can save money because they can access to the no code, so they can develop platform without knowing how to code. And I think it was a huge barrier. So I'm talking about a startup level. So this is a good point for the entrepreneur to exploit this possibility. So they can save time and then can save money also through the artificial intelligence. And as you said, they, if they want to use it at a very high level, they will need to develop other skills, like technical skills, like data sciences or analysis skills, and also communication, because they have to know how to prompt, to ask the AI what they need. So they have to develop the skills. And also there is a creative part. It's important because the AI is creative, but the AI needs the vision of a human. And it's important to develop the creativity in order to be innovative with the AI. So I think that if we can raise awareness about how important it is to get the skills, it can be a really a driver for economic growth in the country.
Thank you. That was beautiful put. Kind of happy that we still need the human vision in the AI. Easy to access, user-friendly, but if you need higher level skills, something needs to be done, which brings me to Pearl. How can young people in developing countries acquire new AI-proofed skills? Could you elaborate a little bit on this?
Thank you, Aubrey. And this is a good segue from what Betty has just said. So young people, first and foremost, need to recognize that they shouldn't compete with AI, but rather enhance and complement AI. That's the basis of us coexisting with AI. And Aubrey, you do mention a very good statistic that 85 million jobs will be replaced. That's true, very true and scary, isn't it? But that's not the end of the story. Just what Betty has said, humans in the loop. So AI is not as intelligent as we make it seem. And the big organizations, are not to scapegoat anyone, but the Facebooks that laid off a heck lot of people several years ago, or even I think as recent as 2024, they scapegoated, oh, AI is doing a lot of these other jobs. There are other issues behind it, but my reason is, paradoxically, we still need, for the smaller group of people that need to perform a job, behind them, there is still a plethora of other human beings who need to support the AI that support them to do in smaller groups. Does that make sense? So when I say all that, I say this to say that young people to proof themselves from AI, or rather to work well with AI, they need to focus on areas that AI cannot imitate. Let's think critical thinking, creativity. These are areas that AI might take forever. We can never say never, maybe one day. But right now we know comfortably that that's a human aspect. That's a uniquely human aspect that we contribute, that we bring onto the table. Now, when we train our young people in the various areas, coding, programming, good storytelling, it shouldn't end at that. We should consider the soft skills, merge them, and hence our governments back home, our collaborators and supporters right here in front of you should appreciate that as we're feeding the pipeline of training, let it not only be focused on hard skills. The hard skills are very important, but the soft skills are what make us uniquely important. And this is how the young people are going to coexist and make a difference. I would say that will be my response.
You are good in storytelling. No, but it's not compete, but enhance. I think that's very well put. And also not forgetting the critical thinking and the soft skills. Would you like to react, Robert?
I mean, I really like the way you phrased it. We would agree. I think but also as Betty or Rahel had already said, it's also continuous learning. So what you may be able to sell today, you have to understand may not be sellable tomorrow. But some of the predictions have not come true about how AI is going to replace everybody. I was been told for the past 5 years, AI will replace middle management. And I'm still sitting before you. So I would like that to be on the record. Middle managers are here to stay. And that's directly for you, Steve, by the way. So no, I think it's the lifelong learning. What sells today may not sell tomorrow. I really like the idea of, so we develop relationships the same way we talk about trade in other ways. How do you develop relationships with clients and make those relationships durable? That's part of what we talk about, creating your own journey on sites like Collaborate. Why are you compelling? You know, why is your profile going to be chosen among in place of another? That I think is going to remain important. And you know, I think AI can be a real help for that. And we've seen that. So we think AI might be hard on some of the tech entrepreneurs, but it's a massive boon to small businesses in general. That's what you've said. So it'll bring them all up to a certain level and solve a lot of business problems they have. Accounting, you know, could be a good example. So it could make their businesses much more stable, much more robust. So I think it's going to be some combination of that. I think AI proves difficult to say what that could be presently. And how, you know, what that's going to happen over time. But really the entrepreneurs we talked to a couple of weeks ago were all focused on, you know, good business skills, good sales skills, understanding the customer. And even, you know, I don't know if AI is going to do it any better, but we still have a lot of tech companies that don't really understand their clients well, and they produce tech products which are not very well adapted and may not be, you know, very, very saleable. So if you can do that, even in today's, you know, AI, you know, confused world, then I think you've still got some kind of a durable thing to sell.
Thank you very much, and we're relieved with you. Which also brings us to each, which was already mentioned, a little bit more abstract, and that is the digital divide. And how can digital tools and platforms help overcome the digital divide and foster a new wave of agile, tech-savvy entrepreneurs in developing countries? May I ask Rachel, perhaps you want to take this first?
Yes. Yeah, this is the reason we start the work we do. So yeah, it's something that keeps us, you know, how to say, going, because we have seen so many how to say, unequal opportunities for people, and it's continuing. It will help. So it's good that the conversation is taking place. Having said that, what this does is, for instance, access to education has become very open for people that have the access and they can afford. Again, we have to be very clear on the ability of people actually accessing it in the developing countries. Suppose there is infrastructure connectivity, there is really endless opportunity for people to actually navigate through a lot of opportunities online to learn. However, even though that's the case, because of the awareness with utilizing digital platforms in developing countries, people tend to spend most of their time on entertainment kind of digital platform. So we really need to have people the opportunity to have an organized way of accessing the education or whatever. So I see that access to information. So access to information is very vital. We have so many information available in the world. I think what AI does for us is actually helping us to collect all the information available on Google in a very organized way. But since people have not been provided the opportunity to develop digital skills from schools, they may not have the opportunity to get so. So we need to work on access to information to make sure that people actually are connected. Another opportunity it obviously offers, and again, assuming that trade barriers in Africa will be elevated, which I doubt will, but suppose that is the case, e-commerce opportunities such as Betty, it gives opportunity for people to trade beyond boundaries. And that has been very difficult. I think COVID, with all the negativity that brought, I think it brought people together in that sense. So people are able to sell stuff on Amazon. And they don't even have to generally develop their own e-learning, e-commerce platform. So it provides equal opportunity for people to trade online. And things like social medias, availability of social medias. You know, on Telegram, for instance, in Ethiopia, Telegram is the most used trading platform. Nobody would know, but people really trade. You know, someone from rural area is buying stuff from Addis Ababa with less situation, and he or she is able to promote herself for international markets. And the financial inclusion, I think I talked about it, but now what you're seeing, especially in Africa, in digital money become very, very common for people to trade. What it does is for women who is selling her tomato on the streets, having to go home with her cash, with all the risks she's taking, you know, to be robbed. That's no more possibility for a lot of people. So we have to really, when we are designing strategies, we have to think of those women, you know, because these are the 80% of the African continent. They are trading, they say agriculture, they are trading products. So, but now because of those, they can access, digital money, but they can also access credits. So you would see a lot of people having like, you know, there's the technology now currently going credit scoring system. It wasn't possible in Africa. Now you see a lot of people offering loans, small loans based on credit. That's all because of AI. And I'm taking up a lot of your time, but I think to communicate with the government, because governments have been detached from their public in a way that it should not be. But if governments really embrace technology, they can actually easily communicate. You know, you can apply for jobs online, but you can actually get your passport online. So it minimizes the burden of people to actually have to be, excluded. Finally, I think networking and collaboration is something that we forgot. In Dutch, we say, I think they say, it's not whom you know, it's it's not what you can, it's who you know. So the direct translation. So networking is a very strong, very, very important. Obviously, nothing will substitute this in conversation we have, but global space have been very open for networking, for entrepreneurs to connect with others. Go to LinkedIn. You can actually connect with people that are based elsewhere. So if we positively embrace the opportunity of digital space, I think there is a lot of opportunity for developing countries to follow up on this. Yeah. And again, I really have to stress connectivity and accessibility is still a very big challenge for us, because we launched a new platform called Share, where we connect 65 small and medium enterprises, women-led, but it's so difficult to get them on the platform because they cannot afford it, they want it. So something has to change around it. It's not only when entrepreneurs actually also come up with business idea, try to understand what the real situation is on the space. Is it possible for them to access it or not? Do they have time? And lastly, localization of solutions. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I know the title of the forum is Better Trade for Better World, but maybe we should put some AI in this and some women and we'll be fine. No, but this is very interesting. And also what you mentioned, that connectivity, networking and new trade opportunities for someone who actually would walk with the cash home, who's now in a safer position. That's just one example. Betty, could you shed some light for you on the same question?
Okay. I think that digital tools and the platform, they can be a source of inspiration for the entrepreneur. For instance, in Senegal, we have a very successful founder of digital company, and I think they are examples for the young entrepreneur, like the company PAPS. This is a delivery company. very, very successful. Another company, the name is Yum Yum. They also deliver meals, but this is really a really nice success story. So I think that the platform can be a source of inspiration. And also, it is how you said it also, a way to make new business model, new market model. For instance, the platform based on the blockchain, for instance, they can be very inclusive because they give the possibility to the vendor and a buyer to have transaction without a central unity. So this is inclusive because, for instance, they don't need a bank or another kind of this kind of center unity to have a transaction. And we know that in developing country, people don't have really access to bank services. So I think that entrepreneurs should take this as an opportunity to make new business model. And also I would like to talk about how the digital entrepreneur should support the users, because in West Africa, in some countries, we don't have a high level of literacy. It's not high enough. So we have to see how the user will interact with the platform. Maybe we can think about a function like audio function, because so that we can use the national languages in the platform. And also, I think as we were talking about that before, we need to integrate the human part in the digital project. For instance, the leader of the e-commerce in Senegal is Jumia. I had the opportunity to meet them thanks to E-Trade for Women. And how do they proceed? They send people in the market, and they talk to customer, and they ask them if they want to buy online, or they support them. This is how I do also with my platform. We have the agent who helps the merchant to put their product online. This human part is very important, and I call it hybrid system. So I think it's important to keep this part in order to reach a large audience for the digital platforms.
It's very nice examples. The new business models, the human part, the hybrid function of the human part to support the users. May I ask Bill, how can freelancers particularly play a role in this?
Thank you, Aubrey. So freelancers, I want to make a bold statement. I argue that freelancers do fuel the digital economy. How? Freelancers are the backbone of the gig economy. And in return, the chunk of the digital economy right now is driven by the gig economy. And those terms could kind of overlap each other. But the digital economy is the wider aspect of it. And when we are discussing freelancers and how they can contribute to bridging this gap, bridging the gap of the digital divide and creating more savvy entrepreneurs in the tech space, we must appreciate or understand the demographic of freelancers. Freelancers, by the virtue of being a freelancer, they are kind of demonstrating the traditional way of doing things. So one would argue they're liberal in mind. They're open-minded people, right? Those are your best people to be the advocates for technology because they appreciate it in a different outlook than the everyday person. They've stood up to the establishment or the traditional establishment, and they've said, listen, we're going to try our way. Number two, freelancers as a demographic are generally younger people. I won't say young, because that's subjective, but younger people. So they're very agile, and they usually approach the world with a sense of innovation. So how they can contribute in bridging this gap, the more young people we encourage, or younger people we encourage to be in this space, especially back home in Africa or Uganda, you will see that eventually the 700,000 number that I started with can dwindle down if we have more young people who are creating jobs, who are participating in these innovation spaces, creating jobs and participating in different economies. And these same young people transcend borders. Freelancing is not only from a digital perspective, but right now, because we're driven by digital, most freelancers are providing or distributing their work through digital ways. Now, if we think of it from that angle, we can recognize that any person from any part of Africa, it could be North Africa, it could be Uganda, it could be West Africa, could be working with someone in Sweden, could be working with someone in Switzerland, and they don't ever have to step or even know the language. They don't have to speak French, but they can be able to provide a service that many people would appreciate. So I think freelancers should hold the mantle gladly and welcome it because of the resilience that they embody. They should be able to take it on. And in so doing, we're going to see a world where the digital divide is reducing, because we have to think of it from the global north or the global minority and the global majority or the global south. So the digital divide could be spread out from a gender perspective, but today I want to argue it from national or a continental perspective, the continents that you exist in. We are in a situation where younger people are grappling with what skills should I pick on? What should I do to become the best or most competitive? Because the person I want to work with is in Europe, but I'm competing with someone who has been exposed to the same skill for the last 4 years. Now, the advantage is we're in the world of AI. I want to be one of the people that reduce the villainizing or the demonizing of AI, because it's enabling young people, for the first time, Africans, to leapfrog, that I can essentially do what other people have done for the last 15 years by going into a very good immersive skilling course of 6 months. And before you know it, I've leapfrogged. What was my, essentially before was inhibiting me or reducing my competitiveness, I've acquired it in 6 months. I'm giving you this service at a more competitive price, not cheap, more competitive price. So if you are a savvy business person and you're talking to Pearl, who can give you something, a programming or coding at a competitive price, and you need to save, you need to pay attention to your bottom line, you're going to work with someone from Africa, right? So we are saying that right now is the best time for freelancers to participate in the global economies. This is the best time for them to contribute to the reduction of the space between the digital divide, and they have the advantage of leapfrogging. Back to the point that I said earlier of the liberal mind. So when they leapfrog, before you know it, the fear that we've held so deeply that we're leaving Africa behind is almost not a fear anymore if we indeed factor these things in. So yes, thank you.
That gives a lot of hope to the next steps. Hope, maybe you want to come in on this.
I don't think there's much to add. I would just say that I mean, in one way, it's obvious. So they can compete globally with other freelancers on the same platform. So that's the same as the guy in Spain, the same as the person in Switzerland. So the reason the person in Switzerland is making $12,000 a month is because they're in Switzerland, not because they're necessarily better at what they do. So this divide is covered by a freelancer being able to compete on the same platforms. I think that's for me, that's a really big point. But another point in our work, one of the reasons small companies are less competitive is because they don't have the services around them. The ecosystem's not as good. These freelancers are providing these kinds of services. So I mentioned accounting, could be legal services, could be graphic design. And these people are helping the companies around them become more competitive. They're also, I think, creating a kind of additional skill pool that's going to be contributing to tech, that's also going to fill in that divide. So you've got you know, a bunch of people who are going through the, you know, the regular colleges and getting to the regular jobs. You have a bunch of people who are freelancing, all who have all the characteristics Pearl has mentioned, who are going to sometimes work directly, sometimes they're going to work with companies around them, and sometimes they're going to found their own companies. So we've got a nice, you know, case that the colleagues were telling me about of somebody who's, you know, gone through the process, became a freelancer, began freelancing for a fintech company, has become a permanent employee there. That's not unique. So they're also contributing to the pool, I would say, in a way. And I think that, you know, that's going to, you know, end up raising all boats in a way. There's going to be more and more people who are digitally competent. And
what I would like to do now is also have open the floor for some questions from the audience. So if you have questions, please raise your hand and tell me to which of the panel you would like to. Our ambassador from Germany.
Hello, thank you. Thank you so much, Carmen Heidecker, my name, Carmen. And yeah, I just want to do a comment because I'm just new here for the trade, but I deal a lot with innovation for small and medium-sized companies in Germany. So the funding for innovation projects, technology open, to show up that it's not only focused on one side. Technology open is very important, especially for small and medium-sized companies. I find very interesting and very inspiring. Thank you very much what you show up here, because it's a big ecosystem. We saw the chain from mindset. You need an idea to start. And after, what do you need? You need the infrastructure, the access, the digitalization. And finally, AI is very useful, but you must know how to use and to make it more efficient. And therefore, I find it so really inspiring, the different positions you show and the energy which is there. But I think the first start, and I think Rahel mentioned it, you need the education to have an idea and to have the mindset to be entrepreneur. Because this is very difficult. If you have a surrounding where nobody in your family, nobody in your surrounding did this, that you have the energy to say, okay, I will face this. And you need the help of a lot of person structures. And if you have, for example, the example Robert did, you have freelancers who can help you, lawyer, banks, somebody who help you with a business plan, but because you need a business plan and you will need the funding. If even for the first step, maybe for the idea, you say, okay, without a funding, I can build the idea. But after you need a funding, you need a business plan, you need the customer. If you don't have a market and you can't sell and you can't have access to the market, you will not arrive. So thank you very much. Not a special question, but I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone wants to react? Please.
Your mic. I think considering we are, most of us are from Africa, one thing that we have not yet utilized effectively, which I hope the WTO will work hard on, is the Free African Trade Agreement. Because, you know, the image of Africans in the global world, unfortunately, is not as good as it should be. So people need more. It took us quite some time, some energy to sell our idea to the Dutch companies. So it became more like, oh, we are helping Africans to work for us, you know? So, but whereas we say, no, we have actually quality to provide. So it takes a lot of burden. That's why we are so grateful with the ITC that are helping us to collectively promote the talent in the continent. So that's, you know, the combination of, you know, improving the image of Africans in the global space and trying to actually work with each other. Why should someone export his talent to America? Why not to Uganda? You know, maybe Ugandans are more storytellers than Ethiopians. By the way, we are not. So, you know, I'm just saying. So I think we can really promote intercontinental partnership, which I feel is not being utilized effectively, because with each other, we also are not yet used to working together. Another one is just to elaborate on what Pearl said on the freelancers. So Africans generally are very much put in a space to serve their community. So you actually become an informal entrepreneur. So if you travel around Europe, you would see a lot of Africans selling some necklaces and so forth. It's because by nature they are entrepreneurial, but they are not enterprise thinkers. So the freelance space help you to actually work on the skill set that you had as an informal sector. But if you want to grow and think about, okay, let me work with 4 other freelancers to become an enterprise, that's a stage where we actually work with SMEs. So you start a business, you want to grow, and there is a lot of opportunity for freelancers to contribute to that growth. And lastly, AI, I think for Africa offers a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs, because if you go to ChatGPT today, ask any question about Africa, there is very little known. So that shows that there is a lot of data training for AI space needed for data in Africa. It's a continent with a lot of rich resources, but the data is not well organized. Even though we leapfrogged in many ways, we have not leapfrogged from working on paper and go to the digital space. So I think for entrepreneurs, there is opportunity to work on AI platforms that serves the African continent, or Asian or South Americans, which are currently not well represented in the space. I'm really sorry, but I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you
so much, and thank you for elaborating. I think this was very interesting and put some new things in perspective, also for ChatGPT. I'm just looking at the panel. If someone else wants to react, someone from the audience with another question. Please, and could you please tell me where from ITC, our colleague?
Yes, I am a CPO and I work with Robert in ITC. Just to respond to the ambassador of Germany, we are honored to work with the government of the Netherlands in this program, but we also have an access to finance strategy that we're developing with Robert and others in the team under the leadership of our executive director, Mrs. Pamela Cook-Hamilton, because we recognize everything you said. The main problem for SMEs, it could be IE, it could be digital, it could be textiles, it could be cassava. The main issue for SMEs in developing countries is what you said, access to finance. So we're working on that, and we look forward working also with Germany in the future. We work a lot with GIZ, so we're honored to work with both of your countries, and it's nice to be here. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm looking around the audience. Someone else who would like to ask a question? The director for international trade from Netherlands, please.
Thank you. I hear the Netherlands a lot in a good sense, so that satisfies me well. Now, like my German colleague, I'm very much inspired by the examples. I was just wondering, you already told how freelancers can help upscaling with different obstacles you face, but when you are upscaling, you become part of a regulatory environment. I'm sure it's they do not all stay informal entrepreneurs. So I was just wondering, from your personal experience, what are the obstacles that hamper the most, and that we as regulatory people can do something about?
Thank you very much. That's actually a question that I hoped would be asked. So while we've spoken of the resilience and the aggressive or assertive mindset of freelancers, we don't have the right policies that do support them to achieve what is required. And policies, it would be unfair to put policies on the partners here, but we do know that there is a certain conversation or negotiation that can be held. And when I speak of policies, we must recognize that freelancers are now actual workers. Initially it used to be considered side hustle. For those who might not know, side hustle, that's something you do on the side as you have your main job. But now freelancing is a real job for most people. But yet they're removed from the perks that you get from working with, that normally a person in the traditional job would get. So my argument is, we can't be going to Mars and we aren't able to work out structures where a freelancer gets national security, for example. That the same minds that went to Mars can truly contribute to working out frameworks. My point is, we're very endowed human beings are very endowed and smart people, but we don't sometimes have our priorities straight. Sometimes we focus on what is popular to be focused on, or because think about it, it's difficult for freelancers to create unions in the nature of the way they work. They're working digitally. So they're working in a very closed, so it's difficult to unite them and unionize them, right? Now, that in itself inhibits them from arguing or protesting or requesting for protections or support. So to your question, I would say areas of national security, areas of insurance, but also the legalities that come to minimum wage. So if I'm a Ugandan, there might not be minimum wage, but that doesn't mean that if I'm working with an organization in the US, they should use that technicality to pay me less, if that makes sense. So how can the world, how can WTO, how can the Netherlands, oh, by the way, I'm a protege of the Netherlands Fund. So you're seeing someone who's actually an outcome of the support that has been pushed down my way. So how can we create support that doesn't only support people like Pearl, but now we globalize and recognize that freelancing is now a global source of employment, and there can be global policies that can be for interaction and trading, but also locally in our nations. How can we bring our governments on table? And this is not a dig at our governments. Generally, any government around the world is slow at, they're very bureaucratic. They're slow at making change. And that being true, they need a nudge, they need a push. And that can come from people like myself, that can come from people like Rob, but individuals rarely achieve things. It's a group of people that achieve things. So I've mumbled on a lot, but I hope there is something that we've picked there that we can get support on and push together. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. And this is a very nice way to close this session. Regrettably, where the time is there to end this session. And I really would like thank each and every panelist for their insights, for their contribution, for their energy. Like Rob, I'm a bit impressed to sit here with 3 female CEOs. We need more of this. And this also says a lot of good for the future, as we learned a lot. We know that digital skills are no longer just an advantage, but they're essential for the future, for digital transformation in developing countries like Africa. Freelancing is a very powerful tool, but also organizations like ITC in order to get there and create this ecosystem. So digital skills are more than just about employment. It's about addressing inequality and also bridging the digital divide. So thank you all for your attention. Thank you for your time and contributions, and looking forward to see you somewhere this week, and enjoy the forum. Thank you.
And thank you, Audrey.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.